So tell me what you've been working on. You said it's coming out January 29th. I think people will be interested to hear about that.
January 29th, I got a project that is basically the combination of my life work. I've spent over 10 years analyzing blood work from a performance perspective. So there's a big difference in what I want to actually bring to the world of blood work, and this is it. Like, I think that in terms of like longevity, a lot of people are doing blood work for the purpose of longevity, but like kind of what is longevity? Longevity is you've got like these certain ranges that you want to be in, so you try to get there and hope you don't die.
Right.
Yeah. So
what's even health? It's like that's very debatable, right?
Exactly. So it's like you're trying to get to this current range and then hope things work out. Whereas like the way I've always operated is from a performance perspective. So it's not just getting in a range and hoping you're there. Performance is something you feel. You feel better. You have more energy. You are able to train and recover faster. And that is what's going to lead to longevity as a byproduct of that.
And so, you like want to be on your diet and you're looking forward to tomorrow's workout.
Exactly.
Where you're like, oh, I got to eat the same thing again.
Right.
It's like that's a different story, right?
You build motivation, you have momentum to turn that initial motivation habit building into something that is just momentum that you do naturally after that because you don't want to go back. A lot of people don't know how good the human body is actually designed to feel. And that is performance to me. And when you do that from a blood work perspective, you can point performance in the direction that you want it. If you're a CEO, or if you're an athlete, or if you're just an average person that wants to feel better, which is essentially everybody, premium performance-based blood work is where it's at. And that's what I've spent 10 years, more than 10 years now, doing with the best athletes in the world. And I've spent the last year converting my brain into an algorithm to be able to scale what I do. Because I work with guys like Sean O'Malley and the amount of attention that demands.
And you notice these same things are occurring. Like when someone's low in this, sure enough, like they're low in this or they're high in this.
Right.
And then you can kind of start to predict and you're like, this happens almost every time.
Yes.
So why don't I just create something that is more helpful to people on a larger scale?
For sure. And from a performance perspective, like when I went through this, there was no one to talk to. Like I had to do that stuff myself. Like 10 years ago, to talk to someone about how to optimize blood work for performance, it didn't exist.
Right.
So I had to do all of that stuff myself. And like what you're saying, those relationships that you see between biomarkers, that's like the real art of blood work interpretation. Because lots of times right now, people have a recipe book approach to blood work to where if this is low, take this supplement. If this is high, take this supplement. And I think that can lead to a lot of false positives where someone gets blood work done and creates a protocol based on a biomarker that actually has a high degree of variability, where it could have been something today and then different tomorrow and then different the next day. You chase a protocol on a false positive. But like what you're talking about, relationships between biomarkers, that's the difference. I think a biomarker can inform a recommendation, whereas a pattern can inform a protocol. Because if somebody has a biomarker that's high, we'll say sodium, then you can form some form of hydration component to it. But if you are able to create a relationship between multiple biomarkers, that actually allows you to create a protocol. It's way different. A biomarker informs the recommendation, a pattern informs a protocol. So a biomarker represents one single metric, whereas a pattern represents a physiologic state. So I could see a pattern of overtraining, or a pattern of injury risk, or a pattern of inflammation specific
like
to
if
certain
someone
areas.
was to have like, just say like a high red blood cell count.
Right.
Sometimes it means they're taking performance enhancing drugs. Other times it might mean that they're having trouble sleeping.
Yep.
There could be various reasons for it. But you're probably not overly concerned if that's the only thing that you saw shift in their blood work and it's minor. But if it was like more major, you'd be looking at it and you would probably, I'm assuming, you'd probably notice some other markers of inflammation maybe.
Right.
Maybe their C-reactive protein is now different, right? And that's where you can kind of get into the weeds and start to find out, ask some questions, and maybe you find out that they were sick.
Yes.
And that they haven't slept well, or they have a newborn, or like you get into all this stuff and you're like, you can almost predict it. Like I've been on the phone with you before where you're telling me stuff. And I'm like, that did happen.
That's actually how I coach.
Yeah.
I look at someone's blood work before I look at their questionnaire. And so I don't actually want to receive any bias from your questionnaire. I'm going to let the numbers tell me the story. And I know somebody before they tell me anything, just by looking at their numbers. So like the relationship that you're talking about, like if someone is having trouble with sleep, you will see red blood cells go up. But then if it is sleep related, you're probably also going to see ferritin and C-reactive protein go up, probably a little bit of blood sugar issues too. Those are all very, very connected. And if it's been a chronic sleep issue, white blood cells will go down.
Blood sugar's weird. Cortisol might be weird.
Yeah, so you'll see that pattern. But then if red blood cells were just from testosterone, then you're probably going to see red blood cells go up, probably hematocrit go up. So I know the difference. Okay, is this guy on testosterone, or is he on testosterone and sleeping poorly? Then
I'm not on anything, I swear, and their testosterone's 3,000.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, bro, that's cool.
Yeah, just take what you want to total.
Okay,
that's not being on anything.
Okay, Myco-Trend, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so all of that stuff informs individuality within a protocol design in the most beautiful way, because it's objective and subjective. I'm able to objectively look at biology, but then I can subjectively qualify my decisions by asking you about your sleep, or asking you about what you're currently doing.
Right.
And that's the science and art of coaching. You're able to get objective numbers to track, to design protocols from, but then qualify them from an art perspective through who you're working with, and you get both of those, and that's really how you get the best results. That performance-based blood work has been unbelievably powerful for my clients, and it's time to just share that with everybody.
Let's go on a walk and talk a little deeper about this, because like last time, we did talk about it on the podcast, but I want to talk about it here a little bit more. I want to talk more about vitamin D, because I just see so many people taking vitamin D, and I'd like to talk about some differences, so we're going to do that on a walk. I mean, I'm sure there's multiple things that are going on with, like, obesity, and just how heavy people are in general. But what are some of the ways that you see it, especially being someone that interprets blood, so many different people's blood work?
Yeah, obesity is obviously this giant problem, and I think there's for a lot of reasons. You can connect it to dopamine reasons of people getting the fat, salt, and sugar response from those, and creating forms of habitual addiction to that kind of thing. There's a lot of ease and convenience to a lot of crappy foods, but from a blood perspective, I know that, like, I'm the nutrition and supplement guy based on blood interpretation, but if there was one thing I would want someone to do, it would be to actually just get stronger, just resistance train. I think that in the world of obesity, if you go from 0 resistance training sessions per week to like 2 to 3 total bodies, and they don't even have to be anything crazy, if someone just goes in there and moves some weight around, you are increasing the metabolic rate of the most metabolically active organs of the body, which is your muscle. Right. You are finding a home for that glucose, which is a problem for obesity. You are helping lower triglycerides. You're helping correct cholesterol. The resistance training will lower inflammation over time.
Energy balance.
Energy, yeah. You're going to have a burning energy in the gym, but you're also going to have an increased energy demand from the recovery associated to that. Insulin sensitivity will go up. All of these, it's one of the number one things that actually reduces fatty liver. There's so many people that don't understand that they are in an early or even later stage fatty liver. You start to see cholesterol, glucose go up alongside GGT and ALT on a lab. This is somebody who has non-alcoholic fatty liver. There's super easy calculations like the fatty liver index or the fibrosis 4 score that you can do online for free, which is just a combination of basic blood work measures that predicts fatty liver progression and where your organ health is currently at. But if you are going to resistance train, that is like the number one thing that I'm probably going to see on a lab. And it's actually how I built the Bloodwork software, is that what my Bloodwork software and interpretation utilizes those biomarkers to create nutrition, supplementation, lifestyle, and training recommendations. So it's a holistic program designed to coach you from all perspectives and not just one or two. So I think, in the world of obesity, resistance training and just getting stronger, being able to handle your body and move it around better. I think when you get stronger, you're able to move better. If you're able to move better, you're going to be more motivated to do things like go on a walk, go play with your kids, try a recreational sport that you've been staying away from because you think that your joints are just going to be sore the whole time. It's just so well-rounded from that perspective.
You get the most bang for your buck from lifting too, you really just, like you mentioned, a couple times a week, even though we love it and we do it more.
Right.
We know that people can have like tons of benefit from 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
And someone who's bigger, someone who's heavy, they might think like, oh man, it's hard for me to utilize some of the machines or get in and out of, but there's always options. There's tons of machines that you'll be able to get into just fine. I have friends that are 400 or 500 pounds
Yep.
that I've helped over the years, and they just figure it out. They are limited, but it actually, to me, that disadvantage becomes an advantage.
Yeah.
Because you get to be good at like a subset of like just a handful of things.
Got it.
You get to be better at those things, and then you get to develop those things over time.
Yeah.
And you also get motivated and hopefully lose weight, and you start heading in the right direction, and you can kind of, you can start to handle a lot more exercises and stuff.
Yeah, it would actually inform a natural progression of getting good at a couple of things.
Right.
And then you're going to get in shape to add the next thing, get
Right.
a little bit more shape to add the next thing. You're going to keep going. And in terms of ROI, per unit of time and energy invested into something, the bang for the buck is huge. A lot of people don't have time. So if you're going to do a single subset of things in order to begin your health journey, training.
Yeah, Saturday hit up
Yeah.
upper body, Sunday hit up lower body, boom, done.
Done. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't even have to be on a work day. You just do Saturday, Sunday, be a weekend warrior. That's
Yeah.
It's going to create an unbelievable amount of psychological and physiological momentum moving forward. And you won't want to look back. You won't. Like getting into the industry, like when I first started in personal training, nobody gets into personal training for the money. You're broke for a long fucking time, man. It takes forever. You have to build up a clientele, build up a reputation, do sales on your own. Like it's a giant, it's brutal. That's why there's such a high turnover rate for personal trainers getting out of the business within less than a year. But when you get in the industry, not for money, but because you have typically, this is the standard story, you have gone through a transformation yourself. And you realize how good that feels. And the only thing that you want to do is share it with other people at that point. You want to help other people feel the way you feel because you know how good a healthy body feels.
Right.
And when somebody builds that momentum, be it a weekend warrior, it is very, very, very difficult to go back after you've already achieved something that you didn't think that you could and how you can feel right now. Losing that is the motivation to keep going forward.
All right, let's get Dan Garner's take on vitamin D. It seems to be kind of a complicated thing. It seems like even sometimes some people that get decent amounts of sun sometimes seem to not be able to make enough vitamin D. Some people say to supplement it. We hear it talked about on Rogan and a bunch of podcasts quite often. And sometimes where my frustration is like, I don't think we should start with supplementation. Maybe not a bad idea in the long run,
right?
But it is a hormone. And even though I'm someone that takes performance-enhancing drugs and has talked about it for years, I don't know how good it is of an idea to take a hormone that your body already produces because it might shut it down. What are some things that you've seen with vitamin D, people taking vitamin D, and also just having like is there a difference between someone having like a false vitamin D reading just because they're taking a bunch of it, or
right?
What are some of your thoughts there?
Man, this is a big topic, and it's like it does frustrate me too because sometimes things are like hidden in plain sight, and it's like, okay, so I'm working with someone who is in Arizona and is in the sun a lot and has low vitamin D.
Yeah, you're like, wait.
And like, but then the natural response is like, okay, take vitamin D. It's like, hold on, wait, what is this? And they take 5,000 IU, which is a giant dose already. Like most people do not think that's a big dose. Yes, that is a big dose.
Yeah, the capsules have changed a lot over the years. They've gone from, being like 500 to 5,000 to 10,000 to 20,000.
Or and then they're taking, and it's like even the logic behind, okay, I've got somebody who's in the sun in Arizona and they have low vitamin D. I'm going to give him 5,000. I'll do his next blood work. Oh, it didn't go up. Let's go to 10,000. Right. It's like, no. Can we please take one step back and ask ourselves, why is this person's vitamin D low? That's
does it even matter?
And does it even matter? Right. That's a huge thing as well. But like one of the most insightful questions you could ever ask when looking at blood work is, I wonder why the body thought that was a good idea. If you can ask yourself that question, your biology is infinitely smarter than us. It answers questions that we don't even know are questions yet. So when you look at a biomarker that is off, it's not because the body is trying to destroy itself. It is a response or an adaptation to something else happening. Your body is constantly, there's something known as allostatic load. Your body is constantly dealing with an allostatic load, which is the total income of all different stressors. psychological, physiological, environmental. It is always looking at this allostatic load and creating an adaptive balance based on the current stress load in order to put your physiology in the best position to continue survival.
Your relationship with your wife, your elbow hurting from training, like it's all
the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's adapting and responding in different areas to put your physiology in the best position to continue survival. That is biology 101. So when you look at a biomarker, that's the kind of when you have to start digging into certain literature. And vitamin D is a beautiful example because people have a logical fallacy when it comes to the progression of it, but there are many things that alter a reading. So first of all, vitamin D is a negative acute phase reactant. What this means is that inflammation creates a response that lowers vitamin D. So if you do see something like C-reactive protein or ferritin or homocysteine or erythrocyte sedimentation rate, all the different types of inflammatory markers, we know that vitamin D is an acute phase reactant. How many people do you think have a bit of inflammation and might have a low vitamin D?
Mm-hmm.
A lot,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's a very, to the point where, in quoting directly from the literature, it says vitamin D is not an accurate marker for vitamin D due to its response in inflammation.
Wow.
Like the vitamin D not actually being a representation of vitamin D.
So that being said, the same may be true of like other hormones, testosterone, thyroid, right?
100%. And like the vitamin D, it's been demonstrated that glutathione is so important for the metabolization of vitamin D that if you do not take vitamin D and you only take N-acetylcysteine, NAC, that is a precursor for glutathione, that actually brings up vitamin D linearly as glutathione rises. So somebody can actually have an antioxidant issue, and that leads to less vitamin D metabolism. Vitamin D also is involved in the uptake of metals. And it's been demonstrated that in the presence of lead, vitamin D, as a host defense mechanism, your body lowers vitamin D in order to not uptake more lead. So imagine someone being exposed to lead due to poor plumbing, and then they have a low vitamin D, and your coach goes, take 10,000 IU, and the body's saying, bro, I am trying to not uptake more of this heavy metal right now. This is a host defense mechanism that you're not seeing. You're trying to force something to happen. That is a big issue. Boron actually increases vitamin D. There's a short chain fatty acid called butyrate that's involved in vitamin D metabolism that increases it in the absence of vitamin D as well, just like NAC does. It is a very complicated situation that is not a one-off. Like I've said a lot in the past that you can't Google your blood work results, because you're going to get that recipe book approach of just, this is low, take this is high, take this. There's a relationship between all of these and everything I just said, because you could actually look at GGT to assess glutathione status. You could actually look at the different inflammatory markers to see inflammation. Globulin, lower globulin is associated with lead exposure. So if I saw a globulin that was low in combination with this low vitamin D, I'm able to actually inform and create a relationship between biomarkers that creates my program design over time in a way that's more accurate and in a way that's going to work with the body rather than work against the body. Because I don't want to offset its host defense mechanisms. I want to remove whatever stressor from the current allostatic load created that negative response.
Do you think people are doing more harm than good that may have not gotten their blood work done and they're just kind of taking vitamins, minerals, supplements, without really much guidance? Or like, I know I've done that myself, especially when I was younger, and I'm sure that you did as well.
Oh yeah.
Do you think there's a lot of like harm involved in that, or you think it's pretty like benign?
I think that it depends on what's being taken, right? I think that if it is just like a multivitamin and fish oil, I think that is generally safe. Yeah, I think that is generally safe so long as the product is third-party tested and you're getting something quality and not garbage.
Maybe you burp it up or something, or maybe you pee yellow, but it's probably not super harmful.
Right, yeah, it's not going to inform any type of long-term mortality risk. But at the same time, when you're taking something and you have no objective information on why, that's a problem by itself. Like, and vitamin D is a good example of that. If somebody is just taking vitamin D for no reason, you can actually create an issue when you thought you were going to help yourself out. In terms of like adding in a probiotic, this is a bacteria. A lot of people kind of just add it in.
Right.
We're just going to have a bacteria that I
just
got at
have-
Walmart, and I'm not actually informed on what's going on. Like there's something, there's a urinary marker called D-lactate. And if somebody has an elevated amount of D-lactate, then lactobacillus probiotics actually create gut issues. They create alterations in the microbiome that impact, it's known as luminal pH. So like the actual pH status of your intestines. If somebody is going to take lactobacillus, which is like the most popular probiotic, and they don't know whether or not they have that issue within their gut, and a lot of people have gastrointestinal symptoms, then they're taking something to try and help their gut due to their symptoms, but making the problem worse rather than better. You get take this probiotic, man, that didn't work for me.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, right.
that's why.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we have a tendency to want to like outsmart, our own biology, which is really probably just never going to happen.
No.
No matter how smart we get with something, it's really, really hard to tell, and it's important to learn that every little thing that you do pulls on something else.
Yes.
And when that gets pulled on, it's like an entangled spider web, right?
Yeah.
It pulls on everything else.
Yeah. Everything is connected to everything.
It's like I used to travel, I would be like, oh, I'm gonna take a bunch of vitamin D because I don't want to get sick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be around a lot more people, and it's like I have no idea. There could have been a placebo effect,
Yep.
Going on there, which sometimes that's strong.
Yep.
But I have no idea whether I was doing more harm than good. It was just like, and I didn't typically have vitamin D levels that were like significantly low anyway.
Right.
But it's like I can't get it out of my meathead brain to like not do stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, oh, it's gonna be a tough workout today. A couple extra scoops of creatine.
Yeah.
That's like maybe there's just no reason. Maybe I don't need that, but it's just sometimes you feel like, you feel like you want more or need more. Plus, I eat a lot of meat anyway, so there's probably tons of creatine in the meat that I'm eating, and
Right.
so forth.
Yeah, like everything is connected to everything. That's one thing I've learned a lot working in athletics, because working with the average person, you can get generally a pretty big response from a pretty low effort protocol. Like we talked about 2 total body sessions per week for someone who's obese.
Couple walks.
Massive response.
Yeah, a
for
couple walks
not
per
a lot
week
of
and
yeah.
good to go.
And then, but with the people I'm working with, like there's literally $100 million on the line. And if I don't do my job, that is very bad for me.
Yeah.
So I do absolutely everything for that last 1%. And when you do that, you come across situations where you realize everything is connected to everything. Like you said, you're pulling on a web and kind of all these things kind of go with it. If you type in an organ and then type in another organ and then also write axis, you'll be amazed at, like, there's the liver thyroid axis, the gut heart axis, the hypogonadal axis. Like you're gonna find that everything is like that spider web. And anytime you tug on it somewhere, there's going to be a functional organ response somewhere else to what you're doing. And that impacts things at like a 1%er level. And it's something you learn a lot trying to remove someone's allostatic load to improve their performance and recovery.
What type of diets do you normally suggest for somebody that is maybe just, they get their blood work done and they're just like a little overweight and they're just a little unhealthy, like just a little bit of like normal inflammation, some of the normal stuff that you might see maybe from like a family relative or a friend. Like we all have friends and family relatives that are kind of in these categories.
Yeah.
But they really want to make a change. They want to make a shift. What sort of diet protocol do you usually suggest? I know it's like highly individual. It has to fit some of the person, like what they want to do,
Right.
as well as what they should do, right?
Yeah, I think that if you want to go want versus should, there's some like model-based concepts we could talk about here. Want is just change their diet that they're currently doing ever so slightly. Like I've done that a bunch as a coach.
What are you doing right now? Let's just modify that a tiny bit.
Yeah, what are you
so
doing?
It's not too much.
Right, what are you doing every day? How do we make that a little bit better? And that's like if someone has, we're running through a diet. If somebody has bacon and eggs for breakfast, and then for lunch, they don't pack a lunch. So they at work, they go get a burger and fries somewhere close for lunch. And then at dinner, people are generally decently good about dinner, have like a square meal with it, and then maybe a dessert while they watch Netflix before bed. That's a very common diet for somebody. But if we just convert some of that bacon in the morning to turkey bacon. Is that okay with you? Yeah, so I can still have the eggs. Yeah, don't change anything, just have some turkey bacon. And then at lunch, your burger and fries. Okay, you can still have the burger. I can have the burger on your plan? Hell yeah, man, have the burger, but let's maybe not have the fries. Let's swap that out for a side salad. You good with that? Yeah, I'm good with that. Love that I can still have the burger and I don't have to pack my lunch. Then we move to dinner. You're already having a square meal for dinner, so I don't even really care. You've got your meat, you've got your starch, you got your vegetables, I'm fine with that. But instead of having that dessert before bed, why don't we switch that to like a legendary Pop-Tart?
Right.
Or why don't we switch that to, and there's so many options for protein.
Something that tastes good, that's less sugary, it's not going to be a giant bomb to like your insulin levels and so forth.
Right, or even just like some yogurt and blueberries. Like that, this stuff can taste delicious, and it doesn't have to be something overly palatable with all of that kind of stuff, like a bag of chips or whatever. Like somebody might say, Garner, you're a high performance coach. You're gonna let this person still have the burger and not change their dinner? I'm like, hell yeah, dude,
Baby
I absolutely am. Because I also just created a 700 calorie deficit. Like that person, from bacon to turkey bacon, from fries to side salad, from healthy dessert to from unhealthy dessert to healthy dessert. At minimum, I have reduced that caloric intake by 700, and sometimes that might come from the fries alone.
Right.
That person didn't really change a lot. They didn't change their meal frequency. They didn't change their meal prep. All they did was change a couple of things, and they are on their way to being healthier. So that's kind of like number one model-based approach, is you can make small tweaks to what someone's doing and create a massive response. But if it is, like if I'm just in an elevator with someone, and they're like, what kind of diet? If there was a dietary approach that someone could, because the context of the question was how do you help just like the average person? The research on the Mediterranean diet is actually fantastic. The healthy fats in it, the proteins in it, the legumes in it, the vegetables in it, having a type of Mediterranean approach has really stood the test of time. I think more than a lot of people know.
It's commonly like a little bit of a low carbish diet, right?
Yeah, it's a low carbish diet. It has got a lot of good fats. It's got a lot of good proteins, a lot of good vegetables, and the research on like longevity measures, on inflammation, on what that does to blood work. It's fantastic.
Not a hard diet to follow.
No.
You have a lot of options, a lot of good options.
Yeah, so that's like, a lot of people don't know how good that diet actually is in the scientific literature, not even from my opinion. So like if somebody, like I wouldn't put a high performance athlete on it, but if the average person taking that approach and starting to have Mediterranean meals, one of the good things it does is it really helps improve the omega-3 to 6 ratio in one's diet. I sound like an infomercial salesman when I talk about omega-3s, but don't take my word for it. The literature is out there. Like omega-3s, they reduce inflammation, they improve blood sugar control. 60% of our brain is healthy fats, and 50% of that 60% is omega-3s.
Yeah, so, DHA specifically will help amplify the impact and the effects that we already get from the sun.
Yes.
So DHA is wonderful. It's really good for your eyes.
Yes.
Good for a lot of development, a lot of other things. So even just some introduction of seafood. If you hate seafood, maybe you can do some fish oil.
For sure. And like the neurogenesis, the neuroprotective components of it. Like I want people to understand, like in the same way you want to eat protein to feed your muscles, you need to start thinking about healthy fats for feeding your brain. That's supply and demand chain is the same thing. You're creating or consuming the raw material that portion of your body uses for optimal functioning. Omega-3s, they also lubricate the joints, so you move better. They're a part of my joint protocols working with UFC fighters for that reason. Omega-3s, I've done a research review recently on their impact in gut health. Omega-3s, they help all three layers of protection. You basically, if anything wants to get from the intestines into circulation, it needs to pass the bacterial layer, the mucosal layer, and then the actual intestinal lining. Omega-3s inform and help all three of those layers. They also suppress something known as lipopolysaccharides, which is an inflammatory bacteria that can actually leak into circulations in states of intestinal permeability, or also known as leaky gut. You could keep going on about omega-3s. The omega-3 to 6 ratio also has an impact on muscle mass and fat loss. The body composition research on the omega-3 to 6 ratio is also very important.
Charles Poliquin was a huge proponent of omega-3s.
Yes,
he was way behind it. He loved it.
He did. He had some guys on. I remember he had
like
a football.
20 grams or some shit.
40.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was so much. But like there is a bell curve response. It's
Yeah.
actually been seen more than once that from a supplement perspective, if you're having, actually it was not a lot, it was more than 15, it starts to suppress the immune system.
Oh, wow.
Specifically natural killer cells. Yeah, those things actually begin to become depressed, which is kind of unsurprising. More is not better when it comes to anything in biology. When you keep adding more,
Right.
your body is just like, there's always a spillover effect and a bell curve response to everything.
So I've had blood work done before where I've had my omega-3, omega-6 ratios. I don't remember exactly what they were, but I remember them checking out really well.
Yep.
And I recall that a lot of that for me personally had to do with just mainly switching to grass-fed beef. So
Nice.
if you're someone that doesn't like fish and you can afford grass-fed beef, that might be something to look into. Something else you should know is that when it comes to seafood, if you want wild caught, you're guaranteed in the United States for it to be wild caught if it's canned. It has to be wild if it's canned. So that's one way you can kind of ensure that. And you can just get some salmon. I think with some of this stuff, I realize maybe for the average person, they might not dig it, but like, I think if you're like a lifter, bodybuilder, performance athlete, just eat it.
Yeah.
Just
Shut up.
Yeah, just buy a can and like eat some of it here and there. It doesn't necessarily, I don't think it has to be every single day.
Yep.
But a couple times a week would be a great idea to, get some sort of habit with some fish. And if you don't like that, if you don't like canned version, maybe just when you go out, order some salmon with dinner or something like that. But
Yep.
that's been helpful for me.
Yeah, that's one kind of recommendation that I like to have for people is if you go out for dinner, eat a meat that you don't eat at home.
Yep, that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very simple thing. It's like, okay, well, if I eat steak every day at home, then maybe I will have salmon when I go out for dinner, which might just be 1 to 3 times a week. Just pick a different meat so you get a different amino acid profile, a different fatty acid profile, something that is different than your everyday activity. Really helps round out one's dietary approach and doesn't force them to do something that they don't need or want to do. And when it comes to like fatty fish, you could also have fish oil as well, or algae.
Yep.
Both of those are going to have EPA and DHA. The real research-based dose to get maximum benefits is 3 grams of EPA and DHA per day. So that not 3 grams of fish oil, but 3 grams of EPA and DHA per day. So the concentration of your fish oil is going to inform how many capsules or how much liquid you're going to need. That is to your point, DHA can have activity in certain areas of the body, but EPA also has activities into other areas of the body. So if you're someone who wants to lean a little bit more on inflammation and heart health, you could have an EPA dominant ratio in that 3 grams. So maybe you're doing 2 grams of EPA and only 1 gram of DHA. But if you want to have a brain and macular benefit from DHA, you would actually just flip that. You could go 2 grams DHA and 1 gram EPA, or if you don't want either dominance, 50-50 split. 1.5 grams of EPA, 1.5 grams of DHA. You're getting the best of both worlds in terms of long-term heart health, but also long-term brain health.
What was some of that meat you were having a while back? Do you still have those like deer or something?
That's
or
right.
Elk or was it?
Yeah. Axis deer.
Axis deer. How was that?
Fantastic. Yeah.
Delicious, right?
Oh yeah, dude. Wild game is fantastic. I actually work with Maui Nui. Maui Nui sends me a big giant freezer full of meat when I want it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And actually they didn't have Canadian distribution until me, and I was like, yes.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, so they figured it out. And I got tons of Axis deer. And yeah, in terms of micronutrients, the amino acid profile, the fatty acid profile in those, it's like one of the healthiest meats in the world. I've got actually a lot of my athletes on it now too. The animal, it's hunted in an incredibly low stress environment, so the animal itself is not stressed. And they're eating everything that they're naturally supposed to. They're in their environment that they're supposed to be in. And the healthier your animal is, the healthier that meat is. Like that plays a big role in what that thing is going to.
Just a deer hanging out in Maui?
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be having a pina colada on the beach.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very low stress environment.
Yeah, drinking out of a pineapple.
Right. Yeah. They only exist there, which is pretty cool. And then they also have a bone broth, which is incredibly, like they actually got it tested, and the lab was like, I don't really think that this is right. So they got it retested. Because the nutritional profile was so strong, they're like, holy shit, yeah. The amount of collagen in here, the amount of micronutrients in here, this is actually, like this is incredibly impressive. Yeah, bone broth is huge. And Maui Nui, they make some really, really great stuff.
So after I did the Boston Marathon, you went into your own competition.
Yep.
Getting ready for some photos and stuff. How was that?
Fantastic, man. I love to...
Getting ready for a pose down.
Yeah, man. I smashed everybody in that competition.
Yep, you versus you, right? Yeah. Party of one.
Yeah. No, it was a competition with some of the other boys at Rapid.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So we did this thing, but I do those big goals anyways. I like to keep my blades sharp. Like that's why within 1 year I bench pressed 405 pounds, I ran a marathon, and then did that photo shoot. That was all within a year's time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I do that because if I'm gonna expect my athletes get extreme results, then I better reflect that myself. I don't want to tell people what to do without having felt the suffering.
It's like, oh, what'd you ever bench? You're like 405. They're like, oh.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Like, what did you ever do? I just ran a marathon 6 months ago. You're like, oh.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And here's his pictures.
Yeah.
All shredded up.
It allows you to coach better. And to this day, I do like content and podcasts and stuff like that, but I am a coach first and an educator second. My income, what I do, how I built a name for myself, is not through creating content. It's through getting results for the world's best performers. Like if anybody goes to my Instagram, they're gonna know real quick that I'm not like a clickbait guy in my Instagram. It's like, it's almost endearing how boring it is. It's like, oh, this guy's a nerd. But that's how I've always kind of wanted it to be. I've never tried to be popular, but I do want to be a leader. Like those are two different things. And that content, it's long form. I'm just posting the studies that support my caption. And that's kind of always how I've played this game. And I think from a coach's perspective, you do gain a different level of appreciation and understanding for helping somebody mentally and psychologically through hard hypocalorism. Like if I'm helping my fighter through their weight cut, I've got access now to when I did that photo shoot and got to like whatever percent body fat that was. I have been hungry for a lot of time. I've had to train hungry. I've had to go to bed hungry. Knowing what all that is actually allows you to also inform new protocols and innovate your own practices, because you are problem solving all along the way based on your own physiology. So you're able to help someone so much more that way, and
able to guide them through stuff that, like, you know, hey, yeah, you have to push through this, or hey, you know what, you're right, this isn't safe for you.
Right.
Today's not a good day to push on that, you know, because you can kind of tell the difference once you experience it yourself.
Yes.
You can start to feel the difference, and you can start to, when someone shares with you what they're kind of going through, you can be like, I don't like the sounds of that, you know, like let's back out of this, and we'll get to that again next week. You know, we'll try for that performance marker next week.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things get a little, and I imagine with a fighter, you know, they have so many disciplines. You know, their coach might have them, you know, going nuts on an assault bike, but they're also sparring, you know, twice a day.
Yep.
And they're like in the middle of trying to cut weight and so on.
Yeah.
Seems like the strategies nowadays are a lot better than it used to be, but still a lot of work.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is the difference between a scientist and a coach. I think a coach has to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk, whereas a scientist is really just creating new knowledge with studies. They're being able to talk the talk, or an educator can just talk the talk, but a coach should have to have a level of experience in that world. They don't have to, but I believe at that level, you do need to be able to put yourself through those things to empathize and understand your client a lot better, so that you don't just do what the science says. Because if I look at this science and I say, I have to do this amount of reps, and I don't take into consideration he sparred twice that day and did the assault bike, especially for a fighter. Because if I ask a fighter, hey man, how you feeling today? Good. They're so mentally resilient, they're not gonna tell you they don't feel good.
That was yesterday,
good, yeah. Fired up, let's go. And you can't, that they will bury themselves with their own mental endurance. And if you just try to do the science game and not actually understand what's happening right then and there, or do blood work to see what kind of injury risk or training status they're currently at, you're not going to be able to navigate that situation properly. And fight camps are huge, man. Lots of times you get one shot at the title. A lot of guys who get one shot, and then you go back to the bottom of the ladder, you have to work your way back up, and things don't always work out. So your ability to make that fight camp as smooth as possible, like O'Malley, he's 6 weeks out right now. So him and I are working on a lot of stuff.
Cool.
And that's going to be his first title defense.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, how was that, seeing him win the strap?
Dude, that was a wild week. It was like one of the coolest weeks of my entire life. I worked with him for about 5 years now. He was an unranked fighter, and we've gone from unranked to world champion in 5 years.
Wow.
And it's like the whole story of how things progressed and came to life. It's like a freaking movie, man. And especially that week. It was like, it's hard to put into words when you see that whole thing come together. That's actually where this watch came from. That watch is the UFC world title. So this is the world champion.
It's the octagon.
It's the world championship watch, and Sean gave it to me.
That's sick.
Yeah, they don't actually make these. This is the world champ watch. So it was a really cool week, man. And he was going against Aljamain Sterling.
You better hope someone doesn't think that you know how to fight and they take it from you.
No, I'm safe in my mom's basement. No,
that's a UFC fighter, you know.
I've got tattoos. I'm bald. I have a beard.
Yeah.
That guy can probably fight, right?
Exactly.
I'm talking the talk. But it was incredible, man. He had a rib injury, and he couldn't grapple for 6 weeks.
Oh shit.
Going into a fight against the best grappler in the division. And it was one of the coolest times when I've seen high performance mentality in real life, because the man is stone cold. Like, he hasn't grappled in 6 weeks. And he's not pulling out of the fight, and he's going into this fight against the best grappler in the division. He's in there, he's so confident. He's nasal breathing. Like you hear about that mentality from like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or these people who are just
stoic in those moments. Yeah.
Unbelievably relentless, stoic, calm under the lights, cool under pressure. O'Malley goes out there, pulls back, hits that right hand, KOs him. And it was very cool. Like, he's on the day of the fight, he's calm, he's eating, like a lot of people.
Normal.
Yeah, and he's about to go in there
cool.
and compete against Aljo after not grappling. Like, seeing that in real life teaches you what like a high performance mentality actually is.
Well, it helps you. It makes you recognize there's other levels for you to go to, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's other levels for the other people that you work with to go to as well.
For sure. Yeah, him going out there and getting that job done, and like also teaching, depending on how you look at it, maybe it was a good thing, because you can look at Aljo and be like, man, I better do a ton of grappling in this fight camp in order to deal with that. But O'Malley's strength has always been in striking. Yeah. So like, since we couldn't grapple, he had to emphasize his strengths. And depending on how you look at that, that actually could have been a very positive thing. Instead of just to try to neutralize the opponent, maybe I can emphasize my strengths and KO him. And there's cool footage of him practicing that exact counter in the back before they went out there.
That's always super interesting when you see that.
Yeah.
And they go out there and they actually perform it. You're like, holy shit.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Doing it in real time in front of 20,000 fans and X amount of people watching on pay-per-view.
Shows you how cool he is under pressure, though, too. Because a lot of times you can train for something, but then under pressure, you just go back to your instincts.
Yeah.
Like those counters that you worked on for 8 weeks, you don't really do. You kind of just fight the way you fight.
Go back to going, oh shit, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
Fucking tired.
Exactly. But he went out there and is calm enough to be able to have that pattern recognition and throw that. And I lost my voice for like a week after he landed that.
I bet you went nuts.
That was a fun night in Boston, too. Yeah. I'll tell you that.
Cool, man. Where can people find you, Dan Garner?
At Dan Garner Nutrition on Instagram is the place to find me. And if you're interested in premium performance-based blood work, that's at vitalityblueprint.com.
Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.